That looks fascinating. If you got a chance to get some video ideas to run past you.
Sure.
Got a second.
Hey YouTube, it's Chris Dyer here at Reborn Martial Arts in Springfield, Virginia, and we are looking at dog boxing today. What is it? Its personality, its methods, some of the interesting things about it, and my thoughts on it. So check it out. Okay, so Gaochuan, or dog boxing, literal translation of it, is said to have come from the southern Fujian province, where a nun, Siyu, from the White Lotus Temple, was said to have practiced the techniques, and she fell ill while traveling and was taken care of by the Chen family, who she taught her methods to as a way of thanking them for assistance while she was ill, and it was kept secret for generations after, and then later it became shared amongst other martial artists, and some people believe that it was practiced by imperial guards because of its close range tactics, and much like groundwork today, like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and whatnot, it's a method of fighting on the ground primarily. What to do if you get grappled, if you end up thrown down on the ground, or a person is standing over you and whatnot. So it has some really, really interesting features, such as walking in low stances, ground spinning kicks, and some sweeps and whatnot from the ground. So let's actually take a look at some of these things, and then we'll cover my thoughts on them. Alrighty, so let's look at some of the things that I saw while researching Gaochuan, and things that stood out that I really thought were interesting. Again, I'm not an expert in this style. I've never actually had a formal lesson. It was just kind of researching some of this stuff that stood out that I think is really fascinating about Gaochuan. So a couple things that I noticed while looking at people practicing this art is the half moon stance. So if you watch people train this traditional stance very low, but then actually working on these low postures as they're going through as like kind of a basis for training. You see this in a lot of Kung Fu systems, but again, looking at this idea of it as a primarily ground fighting type of thing, what would this type of movement be used for? Why do a low walking horse stance like this? And the thing that came to mind was something that I use often in like our grappling arts or our throwing arts, is to manipulate the lower half of our opponent's body. So if Mike and I are working together, obviously, chambered positions, if we do this, we're grabbing onto a person, we're holding a person, we're controlling a person in some way. So let's just, I grab Mike's arm. I end up with Mike's arm. So I'm going to hold this to me. Now that stance that we looked at, this low horse stance, the lower you can go, the better when you're doing these types of stances. I work on this with my students all the time, is get lower, get lower, get lower. Shoot for about a 90-degree bend in your horse stance, because that allows you to get below a person's center of mass. Now, if we're looking at a throwing or ground fighting art, we want to get below our person's center of mass so that we can use our legs to manipulate them. So again, I get inside Mike's guard, there's my half moon stance, and notice what happens to his stability, his balance. While I do that step, that foot movement, this walking half moons type of thing that we do, you're manipulating their structure. So let's switch to the other side. Now, this is not a full takedown, obviously, but it's a method of training used to manipulate a person's structure. So this is one way that you can practice this. I take down his guard, I move, I get low below his center of mass. I haven't put weight on this leg yet, and then when I shift, now I bump his leg out the way. So that's one of the things that kind of stood out to me, is methods of messing up a person's balance. So if Mike does this, again, we're here, and then you can start, and I'm not going to do this hard for Mike, but if I get in here and I bump and I push pull, you can see how this can quickly become takedown, right? So then let's switch positions. Another part that stands out is the spinning leg technique. So from here, you'll see a lot of these type of movements where you're around like so, which seem really kind of ridiculous, right? Like, what in the world are you doing? This person's sitting over you, they're just going to kind of punch or kick you, like Mike's got the right idea. He's going to punch or kick me in the head. So this, obviously, you don't want to be in this position, right? You don't want to get down on the ground and try and come at me, right? You're here. It becomes really, really challenging. So what in the world are we doing, right? So by using these spinning tornadoing the legs, you end up with defensive posture. So you're working on one side, I can strike to Mike's leg, I can get him into this position, and we're going to look at this in just a second. I can use my legs to come to the other side. Also, if Mike does an attack, I can strike out. Ooh, you're right. You're here. I can strike out from here, and then if I miss this and he does another attack, I obviously have defense, and then I want to position for the other thing. So again, as a training method of being able to control where my body is, coming up onto an elbow, getting into position, this is a solid method of training, right? You see this in the forms that the Gao practitioners use, and it makes a lot of sense, right? Being able to control, do I want to go one direction, do I want to go to the other direction? This should look really practical, right? The last one is this ground scissor sweep that you see is really, really common, this idea of that they'll do in the forms. This obvious choice, right? So I bring Mike inside my guard. So if back up a little bit, if I try and do this out here, I don't have a lot of power. So I actually cinch into this position as Mike is coming in. Now I can shoot my legs out, and I'm actually trapping and pushing in this position like so. And if you combine this, if I strike this way and then I switch to the other side, I can do this as multiple attacks. It's kind of combining the scissoring technique, tornadoing technique, striking in this direction. So I'm using my legs as ways of manipulating. I strike here, switch around, I can strike it here, I can kick out here. I have all these fun techniques that we can do from this. There's Mike. From this ground position. So these are some of the really cool, interesting things. Again, getting its name from the idea that you watch a couple dogs playing with a bone or fighting or whatever, they're rolling around on the ground and whatnot. And I don't know if you practice this art, put comments below. Is there a lot of grappling, like locking each other up like you see in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? I don't know. But it does seem like from what I saw, the basics of being able to defend yourself if a person's standing, throwing kicks and getting into better positioning while you're in a really bad position, don't ever go down to the ground if you don't have to. But if you're down there, obviously know what to do. So dog boxing, in that sense, seems like a really, really useful skill set to have, is being able to defend yourself if a person's coming at you and you are on the ground. Again, not an expert in the art, but I do find it really fascinating. I'd love to study more about it. Let us know in the comments below what you think, and thanks for watching.
Look at you, just lounging around, laying around on the ground. You got a second? I got some video ideas.
Yeah, but first, yeah.
You have to try harder than that.
I'm tired.
Tired? Day's just starting.